Welcome to the Local Marketing Source Weekly Update, brought to you by localmarketingsource.com.
This week's Local Marketing Update is brought to you by Scott Gallagher. Scott is the co-founder of Local Marketing Source and has become the recognized expert in providing online marketing services to local businesses. Follow Scott on Twitter at ScottGallagher5 and on Facebook.com/ScottPGallagher.
Hey, well, good afternoon, everyone. Scott Gallagher here with Local Marketing Source, bringing you our weekly local marketing industry update. Now, next week's LMS member call is going to be Wednesday, December 10th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, this week, there's been a couple of changes with Google this week and some rebuttal with Bing. First off, we're going to talk about the first major update to Google My Business. Google My Business, if you're not aware, is the the 6th, the 7th, the 8th brand that Google has gone with in regards to managing local businesses. But with Google My Business, this is ultimately what they call their final product. And even though the launch of it was version 1 of their final product, it is the management interface for local businesses, and it touches on all different aspects of what a local business needs to touch on from a marketing perspective, including managing reviews from multiple different sites and replying to those reviews and managing your online name, address, and phone number categories, descriptions, pictures, videos, completely integrated into social, having your website and analytics and pulling it all together. So we're going to talk a little bit about the recent update with that. Bing, well, what was it, last month? About 30 days ago, Google had shut down their Carousel, and we talked about all the implications to that Carousel and maybe why Google did that. Well, Bing has now added a Carousel, so that's interesting. Everybody's familiar with Penguin. Beginning of this year, 3.0 started to roll out in different areas. But we're going to talk about the ongoing changes of the 3.0 rollout. And in addition to that, talk a little bit more in greater detail about the most recent shuffle of Google results. They're calling it on the internet the Thanksgiving ranking shuffle, and how Penguin 3.0 has affected that. All right, so as we go through the update, and this is why I spend 2 or 3 minutes sometimes going through it, because we have different people coming on at different times. That's good. But nonetheless, let's get going. For anybody that's new on the line, first off, welcome. We had a Black Friday in spirit of the United States and Thanksgiving, the way it works, Black Friday special. And since then, we've brought on quite a few new students. So I'd like to welcome everybody. And if this is your first call, just a little housekeeping items. We're using, as you can tell, GoToWebinar software. And with this software, you can either raise your hand or ask questions. And I will answer questions live at the end of the call. I tend to give priority to those that raise their hand because we can unmute you and have a conversation. And typically the conversation is, well, it's more of a conversation rather than just one-way communication of typing in questions, but nonetheless, and typically we'll go on the line. I have to apologize for today. We very rarely change the times of the call. Today we had to change it and it was on short notice. So I'm just working from home right now. You may hear in the background my dog bark or a cat, but I'm in my office locked into my house. And my dog, she's a German Shepherd Chow Chow mix, so she's very loyal, and if I'm not with her, she sits by the door and just watches and doesn't bark at everything, but she'll definitely let me know if there's a car in the driveway. All right, to get to some content here. It's kind of difficult because we've got several new students within a group, and we've got quite a variety of students that are in completely different stages of how far along they are within their path. You know, those that have starting out and don't have any clients. Well, we've all been there. So we're constantly talking about different ways, and everything that you acquire customers from stage 1 is transposed throughout growing your agency to students that have been with us for a long time. I see that we've got Nick on the line, and Nick is a high-level consultant and charges a good penny for his work, and has quite the story that goes along with him. I say quite the story because everybody experiences growing pains as they grow their business and grow their career and whatnot. So we've got the whole gamut of individuals, and when we talk about items such as ranking updates and the algorithm updates and Penguin and Panda and whatnot, you're going to hear a different flavor. Typically, the old 80-20 rule. Well, 80% we feel like our industry is focused on reverse engineering the algorithm. That's understanding all the mathematics and the science behind it. And granted, majority of those strategies work, and they work very well for that time period. But understanding the objectives of search engines are essentially to be as organic as possible, to rid their search of manipulation. And us as marketers or internet marketers that think about that, we try to identify and work on strategies that don't don't work in alignment with define the objective of what Google's trying to achieve. In other words, some of these strategies will work today, and then as algorithmic updates happen, people will lose ranking, and then they change their strategy and come up with the new flavor of the month. And a lot of strategies that, even though, for example, article marketing could be argued to be black hat or white hat. I don't like those terms to begin with. As an example, article marketing has existed with businesses for dozens of years, decades. All it is just creating content and distributing it. But us at the internet recognized we needed a lot of links, and so we distributed it to many different places, and have anchor texts that are coming into our sites, and then we learned about the variance of these anchor texts and the weights of each of them, and changed no. Article marketing was creating a good article, sending it out to your local newspaper, them publishing it because it offered value to their readers of a local community, like a local plumber in Chicago discussing what you should be doing if your pipes become frozen or whatnot. How do you deal with that? Well, it offers value. That's not going to have any value on a marketing site or any type of news site over in Asia of any sort. So I'm just sharing this story. A lot of you have heard that and heard those analogies in different ways, but I'm sharing that story because we're talking about algorithmic updates here. And when we talk about what's really changing, we're going to focus a lot on the marketing aspects of it. What are some of the thoughts that are going inside the managers' heads over at Google and all the developers, and what they're trying to achieve? I normally don't spend that much time just having a discussion. We typically get right into the weekly update, but the first thing we're talking about is algorithmic updates. And we'll jump to that, and then we're going to talk about Google My Business a little bit further. Now, 3.0, Penguin 3.0 essentially is the third major update. And then they'll have 3.1 and then 3.12. And when we look at Penguin, for example, it is relational to, for example, quality of content and how content is viewed to be of high quality. And when 1.0 came out, there was so many changes, and then 2.0, it was relative to some major updates. And so what's happened in 3.0 started to roll out 6 weeks ago. And there was a variety of changes. And this past Thanksgiving, there was a major shuffle again. Well, Google has confirmed that essentially they're still weeks away from 3.0 rolling out, and we're still seeing a lot of changes. This rollout here, it really only impacted about 1% of queries. But when we talk about the percentage of queries, that's relatively large, actually. That's quite a few different queries. All right, well, I am spending too much time on discussion of algorithmic updates and philosophies and theories. But let's move to Google My Business right now. And Google has rolled out their first major update to Google My Business guidelines, or internally it's still called Google Places. Don't be confused, it's the same management interface. But some of the highlights that I was able to pull out of the guideline changes, I'm just going to go through a few different bullet points here. And first being, descriptors. This is not descriptions, and this is not categories. These are adding tags, and they're not allowed at all. It will work against your ranking if you want to put it per se. The reason being is, think of like different strip malls, okay? Different strip malls that you've seen. And some strip malls allow small businesses to do up their windows however they want, to put whatever type of signage they want, to put items out in front of the strip mall. And then you'll have all different types of businesses, and just visualize what that looks like. Somewhere in the middle, you're going to have regulations. You can't put anything outside. You can only have so much signage on your window. Your sign up atop above your store can only be certain sizes. And then on the other spectrum, on the far spectrum, all the businesses are going to look the same. They're going to have the same font of the business name that's on it. You're not going to be able to put things in your windows, and it looks a lot more cookie cutter. Well, somewhere along those timelines is essentially of what Google is trying to create within their interface. They want, all the businesses to have the same look and feel for their front end, and not put that many posters, and you can't put anything outside your building. Well, that's essentially what descriptors were allowing to be done. And it was ultimately not much of value. The argument really is the landlords that allow businesses to do whatever they want lowers the value, lowers the perception of value, versus higher end that's much more stringent and consistent. And that's more or less probably the American way. I mean, Americans like to live in communities that are cookie cutter, and as opposed to the rural areas and whatnot. But that's a whole other argument. Along with descriptors, Google has put a lot more effort into categories, and categories have to be a lot more specific and not overreaching. In other words, general categories. What this tells us is Google has looked at a lot of different examples of their existing categories and others that are putting cross categories that really don't make a lot of sense. An attorney and massage therapy are two categories that all, you really could not have those two together. So likely what's happening is they're going to reduce authority on business profiles that have categories that are far-reaching. In addition to that, identifying increased name and category consistency among multi-location businesses. So if you've got let's say a dentist that has multiple locations, and one listing has 5 categories listed, and your listing number 2 has 5 as well, but 3 of them are different, that also very likely is going to reduce your consistency and ability to rank. This all makes complete sense. If we blow off the dust and open up our marketing books and go under the chapter of branding, this is branding 101. Search engines are forcing businesses to effectively better brand themselves. That, if you've got, I was just watching a movie. No, it wasn't a movie. It was a YouTube. Yeah, it was a YouTube prank. And, a guy by the name goes Mediocre Films, and he was pranking Domino's and asking him, what toppings do you have? And then the lady that was working had to go work at another location, and within the prank. He was like, well, what toppings do you have there? Which ones are different? And she's like, come on, this is Domino's. We have the same toppings. Well, that's branding. And that's the same thing as categories and identifying that. So these are some little things that should be looked out for local businesses. Branding. Now, the Panda update, I believe it was, really focused heavily on brands. And local businesses can brand themselves. One location, one person can ultimately brand themselves. It's just a matter of consistency and brand. We'll call it brand exertion. How many times your brand is coming up and being viewed and talked about on the internet for the type of audience that you are trying to go after. So multiple brands at same locations. Well, that's kind of like having two businesses at the same physical location. It's exactly the same thing, as a matter of fact. So this update is also affecting brands in that sense. Now, Google is giving a lot of leeway now for different departments to have their own pages. Well, what's interesting is you can't have multiple pages for multiple brands, but it's starting to look like that we're able to get multiple pages for different departments. In other words, it's the same brand that's trying to achieve the same goal, but if it's the operations department versus a sales department, for example, they have different objectives with that prospect or customer. And so messaging is going to be a little bit different. Well, again, blowing off the dust on our marketing books. This is now this chapter of customer or prospect segmentation and identifying different segments and creating the right message to communicate with those segments. One story, just talking about that 80-20 rule of, internet marketing. I was at a conference recently, and I know existing LMS members have heard this, and I get really frustrated when I get on these discussions, because I was at this conference and I heard, the speaker was going to talk about these avatars, and everybody was talking about how important these avatars were within this group, and, several hundred people there, and thinking, holy cow, I don't know what this is. I better go and listen. And I thought I was going to learn something new, and I was all excited with everybody else, and the way people were trying to explain it, they couldn't. And I thought, gosh, all right, well, here we go. Well, I sat there and I started to listen and realized real quickly that essentially they were creating what we would call marketing personas. And a persona is just achieved by segmenting your audience. And, McDonald's, for example, can segment their customer audience into 10 different groups. Sometimes you got teenagers with no money and they want to come buy some cheap stuff. You've got families with young kids, the playroom, blah, et cetera, drive-through types of customers. So it's just different types of customers. And every type of customer, you can create different messages, because buyers, anybody that's going to buy something, says no because they have an objection. Well, sellers try to overcome objections. And our messaging should overcome those objections. So different customer segments are going to have different objections to their buying behavior. Well, it all goes back, and we're here for Google. Google allowing different departments to have their own page, but different brands, or you can't have multiple brand pages, really makes a lot of sense from a marketing perspective of what a local business, or a business period for that matter, is trying to achieve with its customers. This one is important. This one has been a challenge for us ever since 2009 and local came out, and we call them doctor pages. Google's calling them practitioner pages. And you've got a lot of different scenarios. You can have multiple practitioners at a single location. You can have one brand with multiple locations and a single practitioner at each location. You can have a variance of practitioners, or practitioners that move from location to location. Doctors, think of dentists. Think of chiropractor. You got a massage therapist in there. They do different types of jobs. So even looking at the multiple departments, for example, you may have a massage department and you may have an adjustment or a chiropractic department. Well, they can have multiple pages. You may have different practitioners that work in different departments. So Google is solving a lot of these problems right now, and it's really nice that practitioners' pages in multiple location practices. All right. So you've got different, let's say different doctors or different massage therapists that work for a company that has multiple locations. They should have their name only and not the name of the practice on each of the practitioner pages. One thing that I should also add, if you're not aware that you've got a dentist office, well, Google has automatically created practitioner pages specifically for that dentist. In other words, what Google is suggesting is that doctors, practitioners brand themselves. They should not be tied intimately to the business brand name. I find that really interesting, and I kind of agree with them. Because a practitioner could go and easily change their business name anytime they want. They can go and work for different companies. But it's them, it's their knowledge, it's their ability that has value to it. It's what's inside their head that has the value. So, when we just think of what would make a lot of sense and where is Google trying to go, we're consistently seeing how updates are being made that really affect how businesses should be run. And well, that's actually it. All right, let's move on. The carousel. At first we saw the Google Carousel on phones and tablets, and then we started to see it on the desktop, and we started to see it for a lot of restaurant types of food types of businesses within Google, and then Google tried it with local businesses, and then they immediately dropped it. Bing has always done it, well, not always, but for almost as long as Google for restaurants. Well, after Google dropped their carousel, Bing picks it up. So this really starts the ball to roll inside my head, like what's going on? I'm kind of laughing inside my head. Are there people at Google going, maybe we effed up here. Maybe we made some mistakes. Or are they sitting back and laughing and going, shh, Bing, we know better. We've done the research on this. Preliminarily, yeah, we definitely thought it was better. And we continued to roll it out until we found the evidence that it wasn't a good idea and we pulled it. It's, that's typically what Microsoft has been like in almost every single certain arena, except very recently. If you've noticed, their advertising online, Microsoft is really, they're definitely kicking Apple down, in terms of their new computers that are coming out that are both laptops and tablets and have touch screen and have USB on the tablet side and whatever. Bing being Microsoft, well, they're probably just followers. So I don't think we're going to see that very long. Maybe maximum 6 months. Anyhow, that's it for today. This comes to the conclusion of our weekly update. I'm now going to give it 30 seconds and I will come back to see if we've got any questions today. See, there's quite a few people on the line now. That's good. I like to see that.
Thanks for watching the Local Marketing Industry Update. We've got these things coming out every single week. So if you liked with what you heard, just click the button right above me right here to subscribe to our channel. If you'd like to get a little bit more, right over here, go check out localmarketingsource.com. We've got free reports that you can grab. You can even register for a free marketing course to get in and see the portal. Or just go ahead and follow us on some of the social channels. We'll be around. Until next time.